Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. It's going to be a little bit longer than normal video because we're going to talk about a very important concept. The concept, of course, is product liability. What is that? Product liability refers to the legal responsibility of manufacturers and sellers to provide products that are safe for their intended use. If a product causes injury or damage due to a defect, those involved in its production and distribution can be held liable. This liability can arise from manufacturing defects, design defects, or a failure to warn of potential dangers. What am I actually talking about? You guys all know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Sig P320 and all of the bad news associated with that particular firearm. Is Sig in trouble here? And more importantly, is Sig even handling this thing correctly? We're going to have a longer than normal video because I don't want to take sides here as much as I want to present the evidence so that all of you can make up your own mind. So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about, is Sig handling this correctly? Okay, America, we are going to finally hop on the bandwagon and talk about the Sig Sauer P320. A few caveats before we get going too far down this road. The first one is this is the first time we've covered it. If you want some really in-depth coverage, I think our good friend Tom Grieve has been doing a fantastic job of covering this issue. So we're going to link him up down below. If you're not checking out Tom's channel, you really should. Great guy, great channel. Secondly, I'm not a Sig fanboy. I'm not a Sig hater. I don't own a Sig. I have one of two everyday carry firearms that will always be on me. They are both made by the same manufacturer. That manufacturer shall remain nameless for purposes of this video. But I think we can all recognize that Sig Sauer, amongst the Second Amendment community, has a very good reputation. And I don't think there's any denying it. But we're going to analyze how they've handled a rather difficult situation with a firearm known as the P320. First introduced back in 2014, immensely popular due to its modular design, was eventually adopted by the United States military, listed as the M17 or M18 as the preferred sidearm. So this firearm is in mass circulation and was immensely popular when it was released to market. The problem is, and you don't have to take my word for it, you can Google it yourself, there have been numerous, and I do mean numerous incidents of alleged unintentional discharge, some of which resulting in serious injury. Well, Dateline, July 23rd of this year, U.S. Airman Braden Lovin was actually killed by his own M18 handgun. When he set it down, it discharged, striking him in the chest. That led the United States Air Force Global Strike Command to discontinue the use of that firearm for the time being. That is, every single airman turned that firearm in and they were replaced with a different handgun. But the United States Air Force, you see, is not alone. ICE, for example, Immigration Custom Enforcement, they put the firearm into service in 2019, took it back out of service by 2020. Why? They had at least 18 documented incidents of the firearm unintentionally discharging. An article I found online as of April of last year said there had been at least 120 documented incidents of the Sig P320 unintentionally discharging, some of them resulting in serious injury. Local law enforcement has apparently also found the same problem, and the firearm has been pulled from service by the Dallas Police Department, the Milwaukee Police Department, the Denver Police Department, the Philadelphia Transit Police Department, the Chicago Police Department, and most recently, the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Academy has prohibited the use of the firearm on any of their training facilities, putting several local law enforcement agencies in the state of Washington in jeopardy of not being able to use those training facilities due to their issued sidearm, and has now led to Sig Sauer filing lawsuit against the state of Washington, which we will actually cover in a separate video. Now, I know that there are a lot of firearm experts out there that are saying this is all user error. Every single one of these is user error. And I will give you that may be possible. My question would be, though, why is there so much user error with this particular firearm when we know that we have other handguns that are in mass circulation, the Sig P365, for example, the Glock 19, the Smith & Wesson M&P. These firearms are in mass circulation, and yet we don't seem to have this kind of user error with these firearms. How is Sig handling this? Are they acting concerned? Are they going out and investigating? Well, if they are, they're not showing it because they have built their own webpage, we'll link it up down below, where they state the following about this particular firearm. The P320 cannot, under any circumstances, discharge without a trigger pull. That is a fact. The allegations against the P320 are nothing more than individuals seeking to profit or avoid personal responsibility. Okay, but then they go a little bit further with this. Recently, anti-gun groups, members of the mainstream media, trial attorneys, and other uninformed and agenda-driven parties have launched attacks on one of Sig Sauer's most trusted, most tested, and most popular products, the P320 pistol. In all cases, these individuals have an ulterior motive behind their baseless allegations that the P320 can fire without a trigger pull. They have no evidence, no data, no empirical testing to support any of their claims. They instead choose to misrepresent clear, negligent discharges as a design problem. And while I can certainly agree that there are many decrying the use of the P320 who may have ulterior motives, there are several in the Second Amendment community whose motives have always been to preserve the Second Amendment community and to preserve lawful and responsible gun ownership that have also begun to question the integrity of this particular firearm. Sig also states on their webpage, the rhetoric is high and we can no longer stay silent while lawsuits run their course and clickbait farming, engagement hacking grifters continue their campaign to hijack the truth for profit. Enough is enough. From the courts of the law to the courts of public opinion, we will combat the lies and misinformation with the truth. Sig Sauer stands behind the quality, safety, and design of all of our products, especially the P320. And then they conclude it with this very stark and brash warning. Industry, take notice. What's happening to Sig Sauer with the anti-gun mob and their lawfare tactics will happen tomorrow at another firearms manufacturer and then another. Today for Sig Sauer, it ends. So Sig Sauer is clearly adamantly denying that there is any possibility whatsoever that there could be a design defect with this firearm. Well, then we come to the Wyoming Gun Project. Okay, now hadn't heard of the Wyoming Gun Project until over the weekend with Twitter when we started seeing this video right here. Now again, I'm not a firearms expert, so I'm going to leave that to all of you who want to comment in the discussion box below. But clearly, the individual on this video did demonstrate on 5 separate occasions some abnormalities with the Sig P320, which if true, would definitely pose a danger to the user. So my question for all of you is this. Is Sig Sauer handling this thing correctly? I mean, where there is that much smoke, most of us trial lawyers will tell you that there's probably fire somewhere. And while I certainly could recognize that some of these unintentional discharges are in fact user error. Why? Because user error is most frequently the reason for unintentional discharges. I do find it odd that there are other handguns in greater circulation than the Sig P320, including probably at least one model manufactured by Sig themselves that's in greater circulation than the P320, where we're not seeing these types of problems. Now remember, under the general rules of product liability, the manufacturer can be held liable if this liability can arise from manufacturing defects, design defects, or a failure to warn of potential dangers. So, is it then possible for a manufacturer of any product for that matter to release a product to marketplace that is less than safe, to be warned and to have at least some reasonable suspicion that there may be dangers to it, and then willingly choose to do nothing about it or willingly choose to just deny that the problem exists whatsoever? Because if a company does that, and ultimately it is proven that there was a design defect, they have significantly, and I do mean significantly, increased their liability exposure by acting in such a resistant manner to the fact that there could potentially be a defect with this product. As a matter of fact, if we're going to geek out a little bit more on product liability law, we also need to understand this. Duty to address defects. Manufacturers have a legal and ethical responsibility to ensure their products are safe and free from defects. This includes responding to and investigating reports of potential hazards. Now again, I am not suggesting for one second that Sig Sauer has not done this. However, a failure to do so or doing so in a haphazard or shoddy manner could expose to further liability. Now, what else do you need to know about product liability? Well, if you just ignore complaints and then those complaints turn out to be valid, yeah, you just bought yourself a much bigger judgment. Negligence or gross negligence. Ignoring complaints suggests a failure to exercise reasonable care in addressing known risks, which can be the basis for a negligence claim in product liability law. If the manufacturer's inaction was particularly reckless or demonstrated a conscious indifference to the safety of others, it could even lead to claims of gross negligence. So understand that manufacturers, through strict liability, are on the hook already for product liability. You put a bad product out into the marketplace, it injures people, you're on the hook. However, that liability can increase exponentially if you are then negligent or just non-existent in investigating potential defects with your product to ensure their safety. And as I mentioned, all of this could lead to a much bigger price tag if Sig Sauer is successfully sued over the P320, because product liability law also tells us increased culpability and potential for punitive damages. Failing to act on reported defects can make a manufacturer appear more culpable in the eyes of a court or jury. This can increase the likelihood of the manufacturer being found liable and potentially facing punitive damages, which are intended to punish the wrongdoer and deter similar behavior in the future. And one of the biggest pieces of evidence that can be used to prove that is documented complaints that the manufacturer did not follow through on in investigating. Now, listen. I think we have to acknowledge a few things. Number one, Sig Sauer has, for as long as I can remember, had a very, very good reputation, and they make very good products that are very popular amongst the 2A community. I have no doubt in my mind that Sig Sauer has some dynamite lawyers working on behalf of them, including some product liability lawyers. I have no doubt in my mind that Sig Sauer has a marketing team and a PR team working very closely on this issue as well. But I ask all of you, the lawful and responsible, the knowledgeable, the mindful gun owners of America, many of you which may be big fans of Sig Sauer, some of you may not be, some of you may actually own this firearm. Do you all think that Sig Sauer is handling this crisis correctly at the current time? Okay, listen, we're going to go ahead and link up all the stuff that we relied upon in making this video so you don't have to take our word for it. You can geek out on it for yourself. We definitely want to hear from all of you as to what you think about what's going on with this particular firearm. What do you think is going on or should be going on with Sig Sauer? Now, if you got any other questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now. But if you don't, that's okay. That information is down there in the description box. If you got an idea for a video we should be doing around here, cool. You click on that link right there and you tell us all about it. If you want to subscribe to our monthly newsletter, the ability to do all of that is down there in the description box. And then finally, and most importantly, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.